Mark Santiago here, and welcome to the Empowered AF podcast, where each episode we share powerful strategies to help you communicate, act, and lead like an empowered man. Thanks for joining me.
All right. It's good to see you guys. There's a lot of you I've never seen before or talked to, so that's awesome. David Blank, nice to meet you, sir. Paul, I've seen you, but it's been a while. Love that beard, man. It's freaking rocking it. Got that thing. Adam Chalklin, you're still around? You're like the old man of the group. You're almost as old as K-Tuck.
That's about right. He started about the same time.
I know, right?
Shaved my head, huh?
Yeah, look at you.
It's a look.
You gotta do something. You gotta do something when the Bucks are losing like they are.
Oh, still sour.
Yeah.
Still sour is what I hear.
I am still sour. Until we meet again, I'm still sour. Cool. Kevin, it's your call. You tell me what to do.
All right, I'm letting a couple of guys in. I'm going to start first with a quick apology to Kev Pierce. I posted about your podcast with your daughter, but I neglected to mention the podcast that you and Kevin did like 2 weeks after that. So, guys, go back and check that one out too, because he talks about this call and co-parenting in general and some of the things that Kev has done around getting this set up. So I apologize, brother Kev.
All good, my man.
So I asked Mark, or invited Mark, to join us today so that we could get his take. He posted a podcast that he did with his absolutely stunning, gorgeous, and cute as can be daughter, and his experience with her and her perception of the divorce that Mark went through with his wife, his first wife. And we can throw our big congratulations out there for marrying Amy a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, right.
Yep.
And his daughter had some great perspective, and then Mark also in a recent podcast, on one of his Ask Me Anything podcasts, talked about answered a question actually on having that conversation with your kids and his perception, his experience there. So I thought Mark could come on, talk a little bit about that, answer our questions. So when he's ready, we can open up the floor. But it was a great podcast, and Mark's daughter, Elizabeth, right?
Yep.
Was so open about her perception of things, and it was touching, both of them to be able to share. So, Mark, take away what you want to discuss, and we can get into questions and things that the other guys have as well.
Yeah, as a reminder, I think it's important, when you're going through this, and whether divorce actually happens or not, isn't really the main thing here, right? What the main thing is who am I through this process? Who am I becoming through this process? And how am I showing up, right? And in that, what we see with our kids and the reflection of what we see with our kids is important. It was mind-boggling. I think I told the story there, but I'll reiterate the story where her and I went to our coffee spot. We go probably every other week to a coffee shop in our neighborhood. Literally happens to be across the street from our house and the school, so it works out beautifully. And we're there talking just about life, and it came up where she had some stuff that she'd been holding against me really for quite some time and had not shared it. And as she shared it, it started to open me up to what I was doing and what I thought I was doing. I thought things were different than they were, and didn't realize, again, just like, as you're going through this, you might be aware of certain things, but then there's other things that you're not aware of. And it's important, I think, that you do your best to focus on you, number one, but also focus on being open and teachable. And that teachability is huge. Like, we're seeing that even with our team as we're growing our team and we're hiring, like, we're constantly focusing on bringing in other men who can impact you guys, whether it's coaching or sales or whatever, and that are teachable. Because if they're not teachable, they can't grow. And if they're not growing, how are you going to grow? Right. And so it's core value of mine to be that. And as the leader of this business, like, it's a gift and a curse at the same time, because I have to live this shit. Like, I can't just like throw it off to K-Tuck and Joey and go, hey, you guys live this. I'm just going to go hang out over here. And it's like, no, I also got to live it. I got to do a power triangle now with my new wife, where I've got to own my own shit now in a different way than I had before. And this conversation really awoke in me to what she was feeling, what she was seeing. And if you go back and listen, she shares her experience of what it was like with me and how I constantly complained. And I think she honestly was being really nice in the podcast because she knew it was being recorded for a podcast. But when we originally talked about it, she was like, you complained a lot about mom. You talked about her all the time. And it was almost like she felt like she was becoming my psychologist or my therapist. And 5 years prior to that, when we had gone through our first like really big breakup and she did leave and all these things happening, she played that part. Her innocence was lost. And, it wasn't a abusive situation, but it was definitely an emotionally unhealthy situation. And so I wanted to highlight that, obviously to highlight the fact that I'm imperfect, but also to highlight the fact that you have to be aware of what your kids are experiencing right now. And those of you, especially if you're newer to the program, that we talked about that probably on your call with Eric or whoever of like, dude, what you're doing isn't just affecting you and your wife. It's also affecting your children and how you're showing up and what you're doing. And all those things are being reflected in that way.
Mark, one of the things we've talked about a lot on a lot of calls is codependence, both on our spouse, our partner, but also on our kids.
Yes.
And Kevin Pierce has been very open about that in his situation. Do you think that was something you experienced, especially sharing so much with your daughter?
100%. And I think, again, it's not one of those things where we're aware of it. It's just one of those things you start to do, especially like in my case where I had a daughter who's mature and she understands the world. And I think there's also, just being honest, right? There's this part of you that wants to win as a man. There's this part of you that goes, kid, don't you see what's happening here? Your mom's a fuck up, right? Your mom is a bitch. I mean, look at the shit she's putting your dad through. Like, that's what you're telling her with the things that you're doing so that she comprehends, oh, poor dad, but that's manipulation. Like, I manipulated her. And I wasn't trying, this is why I say 95% of the time, people aren't trying to manipulate you. They're just trying to get healthy needs met in an unhealthy way. And I had a healthy need to feel heard. I had a healthy need to feel secure, to feel loved, to feel accepted. But I unhealthily went after it through a child, in that way. Obviously, it's not abuse. It's not those things. But in that moment, in how I, showed up in the way I talked about her mom or the things I would say about her mom, for her felt like, man, now you're making it worse, and that's hard, because I know I'm right in some aspects, but at the other side of it, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter who is the better parent, who's the better, adult out of this situation. I think what matters is that you win and your kids win. And hopefully your spouse wins in the sense that they find themselves through this process, whether that's through divorce or you guys get back together, whatever it looks like for you, because everyone's different.
Well, and I'd say in Elizabeth's defense, she had a lot to deal with her mom too. And some of the medical issues that her mom was dealing with and all of those things that you've been very open with. So, putting that pressure on your kid is it's not fair to them.
Yeah, definitely not.
What else? Other guys have questions?
Yeah, I was gonna say I would love to open it up and like let's get some questions rolling.
We've got a broad spectrum of guys with kids. We've got guys with young kids. We've got guys with older kids. We've got guys with grown.
I got both.
Kids. Yeah, I've got both spectrums. All 7 of them. Oh no,
as young as 4 and as old as 16.
We did get 2 submitted questions as well.
Okay, good.
David, let's start with this,
brother.
Okay, hi, hey Mark.
Hey David,
good to see you again. So I did submit a question to Kevin's page today, like not that long ago, but so like this past weekend, like something came up between my daughter and wife where like they've been going at each other for like what seems like 6 to 8 months, like whatever my wife is dealing with. And since I've started doing this program, my daughter has been more open to me. She's been expressing things. I've been able to speak to her feelings and emotions a lot better than I honestly ever could have imagined. She loves being around me. Like she's totally become like a daddy's girl, which is like, it warms my heart thinking about it. But like what's happening is like our kids are adopted. We adopted them roughly a year ago. We've had them in our home for about 3 months or 3 years or so. And when we first had them in foster care, like my wife was like really the ideal mom. And like in a lot of ways, like she always served the kids and she had a heart for it. And like over the last year, I feel like this like sense of resentment between the two. And their normal conversations are basically like my wife complaining about my daughter's attitude and how she's so ungrateful and how she's like sassy and nasty to her brothers. And like I can see her acting out a lot more because of that. And so like she's expressed to me that my wife, like mom doesn't care about like if I'm sick, and she doesn't want to talk to me, and I have trouble talking to her about school, and she's always in her room, and like she's always like deflecting all this blame on my wife. And so anyway, like something happened. My wife's like, your hair looks terrible, you never brush it. And we went into this arcade, and like my wife's like, okay, well, you're not doing anything, are you? And so like my daughter like stormed out of the arcade. We're in Wisconsin Dells, it was cold. She didn't have a coat on, she just walked out. And so like I kind of went after my daughter just to kind of see what was going on. And you know, she was just like casting this blame on my wife. And my wife said like, you know, I'm gonna smack your mouth or whatever. And I wanted to like say something like, we're not supposed to talk to people like that. And I wanted to say like, well, we shouldn't talk to our kids like that. I didn't say it. So when she was throwing this fit, my daughter had said like, she's like, you didn't defend me, you know? And like, whenever mom says something like that to me, and, you know, and she's almost 11. And she's like, you know, you don't say anything. You just don't respond, and you don't tell mom that she shouldn't do this, or like, you know, I want to tell mom she's a slut or she's mean and evil or whatever. I don't like her and all this stuff. And I kind of expressed to her like, hey, you know, I know what's going on right now is really difficult. It seems difficult. I noticed you guys don't get along really well. And I just kind of assured her that like I'm a safe place for her, and like you can tell me this stuff, but I can't be expected, you know, I don't know, I didn't know how to put it, but like I feel like I couldn't be expected to sit there and stand in between my wife and daughter to then create like a more angry situation with my wife. She's already like worked up. So I guess I'm completed, but that was kind of my dilemma. How do I approach talking to my daughter, and like how do I show defense for my daughter if she is like kind of she isn't being abused, but she's definitely getting her feelings hurt and like feels like she's like lost her mom.
Yeah. Great question. There's a lot in there. What I'd want to start with is, you said she's 11.
Yeah, she's about to turn 11.
Okay. So we're still in this dynamic where she's not a teenager. So she's not, you know, in her brain, if you will, she's not developed to the point of teenagers. However, because she's a foster kid, there's a good chance that she's a lot more mature than an average 10-year-old. So therefore she's seen a lot in the world. Your wife is clearly projecting stuff onto her that she's feeling about herself, causing this, you know, this emotional dysfunction. You're right. I don't know that I would call it abuse, but it's definitely, you know, kind of borderline emotional abuse in some ways. You know, and so I think there's a couple of things to look at and consider in these situations. Number one, I like how you're not trying to get totally involved, where you're not trying to necessarily save, because I think a lot of guys in this situation want to save the kid from the parent. That was definitely me. I did a lot of that, like trying to save my daughter. And now as she's older, you know, they definitely have a lot of contention. She doesn't go over there. She doesn't see her. They don't have a relationship at this point. And that's been through her own choice. You know, and I tried having conversations, but it didn't go anywhere. So usually my recommendation is for you to obviously be as neutral as possible. However, when there's things that are said that are mean or that are like very damaging to her, I don't have a problem bringing that up to your wife and saying, hey, when I heard you say that to her, it was very mean, and her feelings were definitely hurt. How do you feel about that? Or asking questions around it. Because she's an adult, your wife is an adult, as far as I know, she's over 18, and so therefore, because of that, she needs to own her own actions and her own shit. Right. So, bringing it up that, hey, I heard that, that you said this. Now, if you weren't there, you could say, what's your daughter's name? Or if you
Aria.
don't, okay. I don't think anybody else knows who you're. Okay. So, Aria had a conversation with me and she was really hurt. Can we discuss it? So this would be a way to bring it up. Well, she told me this and, and she did this. And I hear you. I know that can be frustrating. I know that can be really frustrating when that happens. However, I do sense that she is really hurt by what you said. Do you think it'd be appropriate for you maybe to have a conversation with her and explain where you were coming from, but also maybe apologize for how it came across? Again, I don't know your wife and I don't know how deep the situation is. I'm just giving you some thoughts to think about, right? In terms of a framework to do with this. Because then what I'd want to do is I want to help the wife hopefully understand that what she's doing is causing damage to your daughter. And I want to tie it to the relationship she wants to have with her daughter. Is this are you happy with a contentious relationship? Well, no, of course not. Okay. I don't want you to have a contentious relationship either. So I've got some thoughts around how we can work through that. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Can I interject for a second?
Absolutely.
So I've kind of approached her in the past, not in that way. I mean, I'm still kind of learning, I've been with it, but there's times where I kind of sound like a robot when I'm trying to frame things and set the narrative. But and she says that, but it's not an attack. But what comes up a lot when I have a conversation, or if it comes across as I'm defending my daughter or just kind of asking questions about her, my wife just calls her a manipulator. Yeah. She manipulates you. She's got you wrapped around her finger, and she just that's her reaction. And
how do you respond?
She says she's being over dramatic.
How do you respond when she says that?
I say it's been a while since we've had that conversation, but I guess the way I did respond was, I don't believe that to be true. I believe I'm just trying to hear what my daughter has to say for what it is at face value, and then I kind of sense determine what could be around that. I guess that's my fixing mode a little bit, but that's kind of where I stop, because then it's just I don't have the best, we've been getting better, but I don't have the greatest relationship where I can walk in and talk to her, because so many of these other distractions. So it's if I talk for 5 minutes and if she checks out, it's well, that conversation's gone. Yeah. And then you almost have to ask for a space to have that conversation again. Yeah. And it's on the clock though. That's the way it feels. Yeah.
I mean, in my situation specifically, because I dealt with, with what my daughter has experienced from her mom, it's the same way. It's very touchy. It's very, right? She's using a lot of weak statements towards me. What I had to learn to do was not defend myself in that case, and, really just kind of, okay, I hear you. I hear that. Totally understand where you're coming from. Cool. Okay. So you ready to have a conversation? It's you just let them kind of share what they're sharing, but especially with toxic people, right? Toxic people that don't want to own anything, don't want to be pointed out anything. Now, here's the flip side of that is I've had to also get stern and say, hey, what you're doing is not okay. And I would appreciate if you stop talking to her that way. It is not okay for you to be abusive in that way. Do not say those things to her. I'm also her father just as much as you're her mother, and I do not appreciate you talking to her that way. So there are times when you have to be stern and say, it's not okay for you to talk to our child that way. This is abuse and it needs to stop. I called it out many, many times when it gets to that place, because if they're not receptive to the conversation as it stands, then I have to go in for more of a power triangle, or even just a flat out power statement. I feel like you are being manipulative right now. It needs to stop, right? Where you just get right to it and get stern. Because ultimately, you can't protect everyone in this case. What you can do is be there for your daughter, be a sounding board, but not her emotional blanket. right? You don't want to become her savior in that regard. You want to have healthy dialogue and communication. Here's the other side, and this is the part we haven't talked about yet, is empowering her with words that she can share with her mom. So this is another thing that I did was I then said, okay, you have this problem with your mom. What I need you to do is have a conversation with her, and I will go and I will be with you. So for example, when my daughter didn't want to live with her mom anymore, or not even live with her, but go stay with her, I had her come to my house. We sat down at my dinner table and I said, she has some things she wants to share with you, and I'm just going to be here for support. And I empowered her with words. I sat back. I let them discuss. I really didn't get involved at all. She started trying to blame me and, all the stuff it's you're doing, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, just going to ignore that. Because there's just certain things that you can't even acknowledge. It's like there's normal talk and there's normal, like I feel this way, or I'm very passionate that you're, it just feels like you're trying to manipulate the situation. Hey, honey, I hear that. I can understand why you would feel that way. It does feel like you're ganged up on and things of that nature. Totally understand that. That's not the goal here. The goal here is so that our daughter feels heard.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on a couple of things too, Dave. The emotion wheel can help your daughter, and we've got the kids version too, and the diagrams that Ron Oliveri found for us that we've shared out there in the community as well. So they can be helpful for your daughter to express if you have that opportunity to sit down with both of them. I do want to piggyback too on something that both of you guys said about safe space, and I see an opportunity here for you to really be a safe space for both of them. I mean, it's Mark used the word touchy, and it's definitely that. It is walking on the edge of a knife kind of thing, but you have an opportunity here to communicate openly with both of them, to kind of bridge that open communication if they can mirror your demeanor and everything, and really conduct a good conversation for both of them that they feel safe to share with you there.
And part of that, though, is going to come back to his influence in her. So meaning, David, if you have minimal influence right now in your wife's life, it's going to be really hard to have that with her, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So in a normal situation, what Kevin's saying is like, that'd be ideal, right? Yeah. Like if we're all talking about a normal, like my teenage daughter is not getting along with my wife and I are in a pretty good place, but they're just fighting a lot and she's saying some nasty things. That's an opportunity for me to lead and do these things. But with this situation, it tends to be unique because you don't have that safe space with her. Like she doesn't feel like you're a safe place. Therefore, she's going to go, oh, well, you're just doing this. You're just doing that. So you're going to have this assault of words. I think you have to determine your course of action has to be determined by where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. And in this case, it's like, let me protect my daughter's heart as much as possible. Let me make it known in the atmosphere to my wife that what she's saying and doing, I don't agree with and don't appreciate. But you can also, I'll throw this in there too. You can also assuage your wife in a little word. I love using that word. Most people don't know what assuage means. It's a really cool word.
You guys are Googling it right now.
Yeah, assuage. You can assuage her ego in a little bit by saying, honey, I've noticed, or not honey, however you call her, right? Honey, I've noticed that you and Aria have been fighting a lot. And I wanted to chat with you about it. It sounds like she's really frustrating you. It sounds like she's really getting on your nerves, pissing you off. Right. What that does is that helps her feel validated for her feelings. Right. So if you can do that without coming off corny or like rehearsed or whatever, it's like, man, she must be really pissing you off. Doing that, it's like, yeah, she's fucking making me mad and she's whatever. Oh, tell me more. And just be curious. Like, why do you think that's bothering you? Right. So you could take a totally different approach where you're now asking questions to it. Again, same thing like, those of you, you remember being on a call with our team prior to enrolling in our program, we ask a lot of questions because we want to understand where you're coming from and where you're at instead of just telling you, oh, well, you need to do this and you need to go do that and all these things. Like you guys don't give a fuck about that. What you care about is do you feel heard? Do you know that we understand what you're going through right now? We can help you, right? That's the same thing with your wife. She needs to know that you actually hear her and that she can trust you. So that's the way you really do it with her. Whereas you just put her in a place of like, tell me more about that. How's that feeling? That's got to suck. That's hard. Do you want to continue that? How can I support you in this? Right. Those are the types of questions then you can ask in there.
I just want to jump in. That's literally what I did when me and my ex-wife first separated, because she was always complaining that the girls never wanted to go to her house. They would always cry and throw fits like that. ended up, we were parenting in two totally different styles. My house was like lawless anarchy, fun land, because I just wanted them to like dad's house. And mom's house was where the dictator lived. So I just, we had a conversation, and I was just like, I don't want you to have to go through that every time I get the kids and stuff. And we just came to the conclusion that like I have to enforce some rules. We came up with family rules so that everything's a little more cohesive. So yeah, as Mark said, just kind of stroke her ego a little bit and like come and help her out in a way that ultimately is going to help the whole situation out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Complete there.
Does that help, David?
Yeah, it helps. Yeah, I don't want to take like too much more time on it. I'd say like in the last 2 months, like it felt like my wife was like moving back, like leaning back in. And even as of recently as like last Friday, things seemed like on the right track with each other. Like I wasn't like sold on her like leaning in, but like at the same time, like it felt better and we were communicating better. And then like this weekend happened, and like all of a sudden I just feel like I don't even know how I became the bad guy in the situation, but like I got lashed out at, and like I try not to defend myself. Like I hear Kevin Tucker saying that all the time. It's like, you don't have to defend yourself. You just have to, I don't know, like a week ago, I thought we were in a better place. Like right now, I feel like we're kind of on eggshells just based on like what happened this weekend.
Well, that's where that consistency thing comes in, right? Time, space, consistency. It's consistent. Maybe she's testing you. Maybe, you don't know what's going on. So the way you show up consistently will prove in the end.
Well, and the other thing too, David, to speak to that, piece of things is that ultimately you're never in a good place. You're always constantly searching for growth, right? The minute you think you're in a good place with your wife is the minute you've lost her. Yeah. Because it's literally that complacency that ruins a marriage, right? So if your brain is actively looking for, are we in a good place? Are we in a good place? Are we in a good place? And then it's like, oh, things are happy. We had sex. Things are good. Then it's like you all of a sudden let go of all the pieces you've been building up to this point, and you start to lose out on the growth because things are in a good place. And this is where we lose so many clients in our process, where they're coming along, they're 3-4 weeks in the journey, they're using power statements and power triangles. She's like, oh, wow, who's this guy? Next thing you know, they're sleeping together. And next thing you know, it's week 7 and 8, and things are getting really hard in terms of the program because we give you some really hard exercises. And then we're like, what happened to that guy? Where did he go? And it's like, oh yeah, it's because it got too hard because he thought everything was good and he didn't have to do the work. Then 6 months later, I get a text, man, Mark, my life is falling apart. My wife left me again. I don't know what to do with myself. It's like, dude, why didn't you do the work? So and I'm not saying this to pick on you at all, David. It's just more that language. And I want other men to hear this. It's important that you never go, well, I think we're in a good place. No. You're never in a good place. You're never in a good place. You are in the place that you are in today, which is we're communicating, we're doing those things, but it's not a good or bad, it's indifferent. And if you can take that approach to it, it'll make you focus just on the growth. How can I continue to get better at my communication skills with her? How can I continue to own my shit with her? How can I continue to lead? By doing that, that's how you really end up in a good place.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate that share too, David. That's great
questions.
Principal Rich, what you got, brother?
Hey, what's up, fellas? Good to see you, Mark. Congrats, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
So I'm wondering if you can just speak to, my divorce is pretty close to being finalized here. And I feel like both my soon-to-be ex and I are doing a good job of trying to create space for the kids to share emotions, right? And where they're at with things. And this has been ongoing for some time. As you well know, but I have a 13-year-old daughter, 12-year-old daughter, and 10-year-old son. And all three of them, they're just not there yet to be able to verbalize, and we've even talked about journaling. We've both talked about how we've done our own self-care. I've told them it took me till I was freaking 47 to do that. I'd like for them to start that a little earlier in their life. But I'm just wondering if you have feedback on how much you push on that, how much you just let it happen organically, or what your thoughts would be on that. Because I certainly do want them to process these emotions. I just don't want to be overbearing. And I also don't want to sweep it under the rug like it doesn't friggin' exist.
Yeah. I mean, this is a great question. So I think if you look at it from a trauma perspective, right, which is if something traumatic has just occurred it's something that's like almost like a out of the blue, whatever, right? You want to be able to articulate some of that and kind of understand it a little bit. Like let's say you got in a car accident, right? And let's say your kid just got in a car accident. You want to see if they can articulate what they feel a little bit about that car accident. There's a sliding scale in therapy called the experience scale. And ideally what you want is for that person to be able to articulate what they've experienced and how it affects them emotionally, right? The more they can express that, the better it's going to be for them long term. With your kids and where they're at, the more you ask them, the more you can berate them, the more it can become worse for them because it's almost like a re-traumatization. Now, I'm not saying sweep it under the rug, everything's good, because like a lot of times kids just won't share and they don't think they can share. And then they end up in a place of 10 years down the road and they're in therapy. They're like, I hate my parents, fuck them, whatever. So you definitely don't want to be in that place. So it's really about, I think, Rich, is about finding a fine line between opening the door and saying, hey, I want to be this place for you, but at the same time, giving them permission to not have to articulate. I remember trying to press on my middle son a little bit too much, and he like lost his shit on me a little bit. And it was just like, I don't want to talk about this. And that felt unsafe to him. So it wasn't a safe place anymore. And it kind of really put a damper in the relationship for a bit. And he is the opposite kid for me. He's the toughest one, if you will, where him and I are complete polar opposites. He doesn't like my personality. Like there's like all kinds of like weird little nuances about it that he doesn't appreciate. But that doesn't mean I can't be there for him. It doesn't mean I can't open the door. So the second thing I would say is looking for opportunities for them to share when something happens or when you go through something, right? Like, for example, you're going to create new memories this Christmas, right? I know last Christmas was tough. This Christmas will be a different Christmas than it was last year. Last year you had pandemic, school closures, and all of this all happening all at the same time, because that was right when it was all really like firing up, right, for you. So this Christmas is going to be an opportunity for new memories, right? I'm assuming you guys are already living apart. I can't remember where we're at in your story.
Yeah, we are now. We were in and out of the house. The kids were staying, but now the kids are staying at her place as of about 2 weeks ago. She has a different place and everything.
Okay, so with you, it's going to be new memories in the former house or the former family home for now. So it's going to be a new memory for them. It's an opportunity to create that and focus on the positive of what is moving forward, not moving back. So as much as I'm for therapy and as much as I am for processing pain and dealing with those things, sometimes kids need more of a positive future and a hope than they need to like constantly, going back, rehashing stuff. Now, if you see problematic behavior come up, so you start seeing something that you didn't see before, maybe the 10-year-old starts wetting the bed a lot. Maybe the 13-year-old starts lashing out, starts doing things, that then becomes an opportunity for you to discuss, hey, it feels like things are happening in you that maybe you're confused about, you're angry about. I want to create a place to understand that. I want to understand what's happening in you because, I'm sure life is scary right now. And see if that opens the door for them to share a little bit more about what they're experiencing and what they're going through. Chances are the 13-year-old's expressing it with their friend group or on social media. I would definitely be monitoring your teenagers to a T. I had something happen with my daughter not that long ago where it was like I wasn't monitoring. I probably should have been monitoring more. But these kids are going through stuff, man. And I thought the internet was bad 10 years ago. It's way worse these days. Like there's just so much opportunity for all kinds of activity to happen that, where you want to be careful. And so I'd be monitoring social media activity, posts, things they're saying. Those are the types of things your 13-year-old more than likely to say, or I think you say you have a 12-year-old as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So 13 and 12, I'd be looking at that. 10-year-old would be looking at behaviors. All of them, I'm looking at behaviors. And you're an educator. I'm speaking to the choir here. You're a man of talent when it comes to kids. You understand how they operate and what they're going through. So when a child is acting out in the classroom, there's usually something going on at home. It's very similar. We're just looking for, are there things happening where they're acting out in a certain way that's unusual? Some of it's growth, like it's just part of being a teenager, and other bits it's a manifestation of what they're feeling in their soul.
Yeah, no, right on. Okay, no, I appreciate that. And I have to sign off here pretty quick, but I just wanted to put something in the room for everyone else and maybe to learn from my mistakes here. My 13-year-old is like identical to my wife in so many ways, like in the way she looks and the way she talks and acts and all of that. And I have really had to fight the urge. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm almost taking shit out on her, like unconsciously, or subconsciously, whatever. And I've found myself getting caught up in that. So if you want to learn from me and not doing it the right way throughout this, is just to be conscious of that. Because since she's so much like her, I think that's where it kind of stems from. So.
I appreciate that, Rich. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate you, brother.
Good seeing you,
Christian,
Rich.
how about you, man?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Hey, Mark.
Hey.
Good to see you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I guess maybe to tag on to Rich's points a little bit, it's and to try to stay on topic here today with the safe space for our kids. Actually, I'll just share, like, this week, the interesting thing that I think I am working my way through is I've got a 13-year-old son, and I think what I'm discovering is that, the stuff that happened between his mother and I is like the least important stuff to him at the moment, right? It's kind of not affecting his life. In other words, he's kind of good with where he is because he's got other stuff going on with his friends. I had lunch with one of his friends' fathers who I'm friends with now, at lunch. And I think one of their friends is, who they've been friends with forever I think he's coming out, and everybody's reacting to it differently, right? But they're like 14 and just trying to figure out, like, oh my gosh, and they all haven't reacted to it the same way. And that seems to be like the big thing going on in their life right now. So I guess I'm trying to stay on top of it and be supportive and not ask too many questions, be vigilant, like that there's things going on in their lives, but not be, I don't know, and some of you may disagree with that as a certain way of moving forward, but it's, I don't know, kids have got a lot of stuff going on in their lives. Right. And, so anyways, that's one of the things I've got going on right now, and just trying to be a safe space for them. Right. And not be too judgmental or anything of that sort. So, cause I certainly have a point of view about what he's going through. So, but that may not be his point of view. So I got to be open to that. So I guess so just to get back on topic here, in terms of the whole, like being a safe space for kids and trying to, be open with them about what's going on and how they're feeling. I think one of the things I've discovered, so I got a 16-year-old daughter, and when I ask her questions about what's going on, how she's feeling, her more recent response is that I am weird. That's her response, right? And then I've got a 9-year-old son who is really smart, and he starts asking questions, and they're not like easy to answer questions. Like, we were in the car like a week and a half ago driving around, and I think I put this in one of the chats somewhere. We started off talking. He asked me, like, why do you cry? Why does water come out of your eyes when you get sad? And then next thing you know, that turns into, like, 2 questions later, he's like, oh, are you going to a therapist? And I'm like, you're 9 years old, right? Like, that's a pretty adult question to be asking me as a 9-year-old. And I see some of you have probably been asked the same question, right? Or some version of this question, right? So I guess, here's my general question for the group is, like, how much information is too much information for kids? And I know they're all different, right? And I know Misty has covered, like, there's no point in ever just unleashing on your children, like, your mom did this and your mom did this, because that's not good for anybody. But at the same time, I was taken aback enough by the question that I just started answering them. Like, yeah, I've been seeing a therapist, and yeah, I was on antidepressants. And he's like, he doesn't even really know what those are. He's heard the word somewhere, right? But he's like, yeah, I was taking medicine for a little while, but I'm not taking medicine anymore because I'm feeling a lot better. I did tell him every day at lunch, I get on a call with a bunch of guys that have gone through the same thing, and we're talking about it together. And he's like, oh, really? That's, wait, are you at your desk? Are you at a table? Or are you in front of people? Right? No. So anyway, so that's my general question, right? It's, like, how much information do you think is too much information for? And I can already kind of think of what the answer is, but it might just be a good for discussion.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think you're right. Like for me, the number one thing is to never throw the wife under the bus, as much as possible, to keep those things within, my kids really don't know much about what happened and what the real breakdown was and where we went sideways. My 9-year-old doesn't really understand any of that, at all. And, I tried explaining to him, this is what's going on. We're struggling, and, and this is what we're getting. We're moving on to separate houses, going through all that stuff. Age appropriate language is key, so when you're saying about you being sick, things like that, I don't really have a problem with anything you just shared in terms of telling that to your kid. I think what you're doing is being honest about you and what you're going through. I think that's huge. Like, think about this, like your 9-year-old, whether he totally remembers or not, when he's 22, let's just say, and he maybe has a girlfriend that breaks his heart, he might remember, my dad told me about this group of guys that would meet and talk about that. I wonder what that was about. Maybe he comes back and has that conversation. Hey, Dad, when you were going through that with Mom, what was that like? What did you do? Because he sees the growth in you also. Kids pay attention. They know when you are not okay. They feel it in the atmosphere, and he sees, Christian, like you've grown tremendously in the year I've known you, because you've done the work, right? So kids pick up on that huge. They know when dad is okay. They know when dad is being affected by all these things. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with sharing a little bit about what you are going through. Now, if you start getting into these hour-long conversations where and then this happened, and then this happened, and then that happened, and that happened. That's not fruitful for anyone, but being open about your struggles, nothing wrong with that, in my opinion.
Yeah, we don't want to make our kids our therapist, right? Like Mark was saying with his daughter early on. But at the same time, as a father of almost 16-year-old, and you're in the same position with your kids, we want to let them know that it's okay to feel. It's okay to express those emotions. And yeah, I'm a safe space, but hopefully so is your mom. That's on her. But that's okay. And in the case of my soon to be 16-year-old, his friends are coming to him now. And so it's important to me to teach him how to communicate, how to share with them, so that he's a safe space for the friends that come to share to him.
Yeah. Awesome.
Agreed.
Thanks, Christian. Paul Barker.
So I've got a question about parenting, but I've also got a 30-second piece of feedback for David, if y'all are interested in hearing it.
Let's do it.
So David, because now you're empowered and you stand in confidence, you're the leader of your home, you're the leader of your marriage, you're the leader of your family. I would encourage you to take a leadership role in those situations, brother. And it took a long time for me to get here with Amber. Okay. We're co-parenting amazing right now. Hey honey, I got this. I got him. Don't worry about it. Go watch him. I got him. And it takes time to build that relationship of trust. Hey, you know what? I'm dad. When I'm here, I'm the disciplinary. You ain't got to worry about a thing. And hey, it goes beyond that, dude. When I'm here, I'm going to change the diapers. They're potty trained now. But now, if the kid scrapes his knee and he runs to mom, that's fine. You nurture. You be mom. I'm dad. And allow her that comfort of, hey, David's got this. It's going to be met with toxicity at first. But yeah, like Adam said, own it. Stand up, be the leader, man. I know you got it. I appreciate you guys letting me share that. But Mark, my question for you, brother, would be, so my two kids, my oldest one is a clone of me. My youngest one is a clone of his mother. Whenever he was born, I was a very weak-minded individual. I didn't show up. I was very shy when I was home because I was always walking on eggshells. My wife, her lifestyle is very negative right now. She's very depressed, and she is secluding herself. She's isolating herself. I'm starting to see my oldest son, who has my previous personality, the worse off his mother gets. I'm starting to see him self-isolate as well. We had and this is something I've been I've been aware of, and I've been doing my best to fight it without being forceful. But it was something I noticed he had an event at school yesterday that really broke my heart. He didn't want to have anything to do with his school friends. He's just kind of the kid off in the corner. And I want to help him with that as much as I can. What would be your opinion on, helping pull this kid out of his shell in a gentle manner? He's 4.
Okay. So, I mean, at that age, like, there's so much change that he's going to encounter. Like,
yeah,
it's hard to put a pin on it. I will say that, my 4-year-old turning into my 15-year-old son is very similar personality. Like, the personality didn't change all that much. What would you say to your 4-year-old self?
And I've kind of dug into that. For me, I had an abusive childhood. Hey, it's going to be okay. You're going to get through this. I'm going to do my best as an adult not to let you down.
Yeah.
I'm going to always be here for you.
Yeah.
And that's my conversation with my child, with me as a child.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of leaning towards that with him. I'm structuring the conversation in my head of just asking him, all of your friends were over there. I was noticing you weren't. Do you want to talk about that? But I don't know that he's cognizant enough to have that conversation.
At 4, it's really, really hard. I mean, I'm not a child psychologist. I've had 4 kids myself, and I've got 7 total living with me. And so I've had my share of 4-year-olds. And at 4, my daughter right now is 4. I don't know that she would understand that. I look at more positive reinforcement. So like looking for ways to bring him, like, hey, let's go over here and let's play with Joe and whatever. And like, let's get him engaged. Like doing that kind of stuff, I feel like would be more impactful than like, hey, so tell me how you're feeling about this. Like he's probably gonna be like, what? Like he's not gonna be able to articulate. And I love the thought, like, trust me, like the way you're thinking about it is fine. But I don't know that would produce the best result. I feel like you could simply bring the kid to, like not let him isolate himself. Like, come on over here. Let's play with Joe and Susie or whatever it is. And just like positive reinforcement for doing that behavior that you're looking for so that he's not isolating himself. At the same time, isolation is one of those weird things where I used to have this pastor say isolation breeds weirdness. And it's so true. And I thought it was a great statement. But at the same time, there are introverted people who need some isolation because they're over sensitized to everything that's going on. So, for example, if he's an introvert by nature, and maybe he doesn't, you haven't discovered that yet because he's 4, but if he's introverted, he might need that time away from other people. I am an extrovert, but I still need time away from other people. Like, don't talk to me. I'm going to be over here in my box and leave me alone. It doesn't mean I'm trying to isolate myself. It just means I need time away from that sensitive nature. So I would look at it as both of those things of going, okay, is this him literally isolating himself because he's afraid, like there's fear, or is it because he's oversensitized to what's happening? Obviously when you get into autism and things like that, I'm not saying that about your kid, but like there's autistic kids that have that, where it's like they have to wear the headphones and stuff because there's too much sensitization going on. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And he has a test for autism schedule. The doctor does believe he's on some level
of the spectrum.
So that, yes, sir. I don't fully understand that yet, but
what I would say about that is don't let it define him.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Is even if he is like, dude, there's so many people on the spectrum today. It's probably even on this call. I don't even know. Like I might be on the spectrum. I don't know. But like, there's so many people that are, Joey's like, you definitely are on the spectrum. No, there's so many people that have it, but are high functioning and like, there's nothing wrong with them. That's just part of their, their social skills. My brother has Asperger's and it's, he's like awkward, it's like weird, but he's high functioning as much as possible. Like I always tell my mom, you're just too easy on him. Like he's just the baby of the family. Is getting away with everything because you treat him like he's something, special. It's like, he's nothing special. He's just got blonde hair and blue eyes, so my point is don't let that become an issue, but I think you can do proactive, positive behaviors and that'll help. Does that help, Paul? Did that answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah. I really appreciate that, bud.
Cool.
I'll piggyback super quick. I know Ron's got his hand up and I want to get to him for the calls over. First off, Elon Musk is on the spectrum. So definitely don't let him be defined by that. And then second, I just want to reinforce what Mark said about this is something I do with my 4-year-old as well, about just creating situations where she can be social, and then also modeling situations where you're social and they see you, mingling with your friends and stuff. So with me and my daughters, we usually go to the skate park once or twice a week. Sometimes there's kids there and they can ride scooters together. They see me with my friends bullshitting and laughing and doing fun stuff and everything like that. So I would just, try to incorporate some situations throughout the week or month or whatever to where there's other kids around to play with or other people for you to hang out with and you can socialize with.
Another thing Kevin Pierce has talked about in the past is using stuffed animals and things to say, boy, I really like the way that, I forget your son's name, the way he did that, the way he was interacting, or even the way, little Charlotte was interacting with everybody in class, and to speak to that stuffed animal to reinforce what your kid was doing.
Appreciate that, Kevin. Yes, sir.
Ron Oliveri, you're up. Thanks, Paul.
Hey guys, hey Mark.
Oh man,
That's something I've battled with for a long time. I'm just gonna bring it up because you brought up Christmas and new traditions, and I'm often struggling with my emotions versus what's right for my kids. And my soon-to-be ex, wants to be able to do Christmas morning together. We've got a big thing that we usually do with a bunch of friends, or we have a bunch of kids that are in the same age, and we all have a big dinner and they exchange presents and we go on it, look at Christmas lights at a few houses in the area. She wants to be able to do that together. And for me, it's been something that I've been very uncomfortable with, and it's a boundary I haven't really wanted to cross. So there's a piece of me that says that's my boundary, I need to stick to it. But then there's a piece of me that says, well, can I suck it up for my kids? Or am I needing to sort of create these new traditions because that's sort of the way life is moving forward? I don't know at what point you rip that Band-Aid off. They're 2, 6, and 8. Or if I sort of, let my boundaries fade a little bit for this first year.
So why is that your boundary? Is it because you want to create new memories separate from mom?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought a lot about it. I think that for me in the group setting, hanging out with previous friends, or not previous friends, but friends that we did a lot of stuff with as a group.
Yeah.
There was just so much times that we did that, and she was in an affair and still was with a guy where that was happening, and you would have thought everything was normal. And so she was just able to really put on this fakeness. And at the moment, I'm just not comfortable seeing that again, because that's what's going to be happening.
Yep.
Right. Like, and I'm trying to dig down to understand why that is and how I get past that, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah. And I mean, the fact that you can acknowledge that's huge. So I lean towards gut in this situation. If it's making you feel uncomfortable to be in that situation, why put yourself in that situation? Right. If it's going to make you, be depressed, angry, whatever, and you don't feel ready, then I don't think there's anything wrong with having a boundary around that. Now, can you keep her from bringing the kids? No. Right. As long as it's on parenting time and all those things, she may do that. So you have to ask yourself, are you okay with her doing that without you?
Well, for this particular dinner thing, it's called Cousins Christmas. It lands on a night that it's my boys. So she's asking me if she can go or not. And I told her I'm uncomfortable with it.
Yeah. I mean, she definitely can go. I think you just have to decide for yourself, are you okay with them going, or would you rather keep them? I'm going to lean towards in that situation that it may be a little bit more. I think long-term, you would get a win out of this for yourself if you let her take the kids and you sit this one out. Meaning, this isn't tit for tat, but it is strategy. And, when you're dealing with another human being, you can't make her do things. You can't make her, unless it's court ordered, you can't make her not go or, whatever. Right. But what you can do is play the game in a fair way, which is, you know what, I'm going to let you do this because I know this is a valuable thing to you. So by doing that, you're then winning something with her in terms of not just brownie points, but you're respecting, honoring, showing her that you care enough to let her do this, but you are sitting out because you don't feel comfortable. And that's the boundary for you. You're not controlling the situation by saying, no, I'm not going to let you take our kids to this thing. That would be manipulative and that would be destructive long term. Short term, it's going to hurt a little bit. If I were you, you let him go, and then I'd go do something fun. I'd go find another friend. I'd go do something you can do that's going to be fun for you. So that way you're not sitting around thinking about it, thinking about what's happening and who these people are and all that stuff. None of that solves anything.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I just want to share that the group of people that is with, she has like shut down, and I have leaned on very much so. So with that group of people, they are far more comfortable, and they've all expressed it to me that far more comfortable with me being the one that's there and her not being the one that's there. And I haven't expressed that to her, but she knows it because she has really pushed them out of her life where I've leaned into them.
Right. But at the end of the day, you know, if it's going to make you feel uncomfortable being there with her, and it feels like that's outweighing the whole situation, then why not let her go? Let her experience whatever she experiences while she's there. The kids will have fun. They'll find a way to have fun through the situation. And you come out a winner. You still are able to, go do whatever it is that you want to do that night. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to find new friends, to do new things that you haven't done before. Because that's the beauty in divorce. It's not that divorce is this great thing, an amazing thing, but it gives you an opportunity to find you again. It gives you an opportunity to do things you would have never done before had you not been, in this relationship. I moved to a whole different side of town. I have a completely different set of friends, completely different life than I ever had before. And I love it. It's different from what I thought it would be, but I love my life. So does that make sense, or does that help you in any way?
Do you have the same sort of feedback then for Christmas morning?
In terms of where she goes or what?
This year it's worked out where it's going to be the boys will spend it with her at her house, and she's invited me to show up there early Christmas morning and be a part of them opening gifts and the whole Santa thing.
Because it's the first,
I return that favor next year.
Yeah, because it's the first year, I think it's not a bad idea. We kind of did that. We were in-house separated on our first Christmas, and it was weird, but we made it work for the kids. Then the very next year, it was, my house, her house, all the things. We were already divorced and stuff. So it was different. But since it's still kind of new, it may not be a bad idea. Again, you got to do what you can do. And if it's hard for you emotionally and it's going to ruin things, you have to get into this. This is about the kids, not about you.
Yeah, right. That's the balance that I keep trying to.
I think some of it's just literally your ego is just getting in the way. I mean, that's
exactly where I was going to go with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to go back to a mental frame we talked about a couple of weeks ago on a call of you have to disconnect her being mom and her being ex-wife for some of these situations. So right now, it kind of, what I hear a little bit is that you're clinging some to the ex-wife thing, and it's kind of getting in the way of the situation happening. And you have to go more into, well, this is mom, family time, whatever. So you just, I don't know, have to work on that disconnect with that.
Right. I appreciate the feedback, guys.
You're welcome.
And thanks for sharing.
Guys, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you so much, Mark. We filled time, and we could probably go for a couple more hours on it, but I'm going to respect everybody's evening. And thank you for joining us. When we have other topics similar to this, or, I'll just throw it out there. Anytime you want to join, we'll welcome you in here. I think Kev will agree with me that. Guys, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for everybody's perspectives and questions and time. And we will see you next week again.
Hey, this is Mark Santiago, CEO and founder of Empowered Man. I want to thank you for listening to today's podcast. However, before you go, I want to give you a special invitation. Now listen, we've got a program that is designed specifically for men who are hurting right now, who are on the verge potentially of divorce, who are facing potential separation or already separated, and they don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn. They're dealing with anxiety. They're dealing with cheating. They're dealing with all kinds of shit. If that's you, I want to challenge you to take the Empowered Man 30-Day Challenge. That's right, the Empowered Man 30-Day Challenge. You can go to emchallenge.com right now and sign up for the 30-Day Challenge. Here's why I think you should do that. If you're hurting, you need to understand why you're hurting. You need to understand what is actually going on. In week 1 of the challenge, we are going to actually rip off that Band-Aid a little bit and coach you through that process. And then we continue to do that process all the way to the point where you start to make decisions that are empowered instead of disempowered. I don't know about you, but I would much, much, much rather make decisions from a place of strength than a place of weakness. So if you're facing decisions, if you're facing this anxiety, what do I do? How do I respond? When my wife is being toxic, I don't know what to do. My wife is cheating on me. I don't know what to do. My wife doesn't love me. I don't know what to do. We are going to help you find those answers within. Now, look, this 30-day challenge is probably unlike any other you've been a part of. Why? Because not only do we have daily assignments happening in the program every single day, but you also get live group coaching calls. I said live group coaching calls with myself and my lead coach. That's right. I am a part of this. It's not just some other people doing it. I am there live with you every single week call that we are on. Third part of that is you're going to have a community of other guys that are going through exactly what you are going through. And the best part of this isn't even a fraction of the price we could charge for it. In fact, at some point we may raise the price, but right now it is at a bargain. So go to emchallenge.com, emchallenge.com to take the Empowered Man 30-day challenge, and I will see you on the inside.